Hello and welcome to Beyond the Box Art. My name's Tom and today I'm going to be showing you how to keep your brushes in this kind of condition that we've got here, brand new. We will actually be doing some brush restoration in this video using some of the brushes I'm about to bring on screen here. It's just a selection from my brush graveyard. They're all splayed and in a mess. You can see all of the bristles need some care. Now, some brushes you will work to a point where they will not be able to retain their shape. You might have broken some bristles off. You might have pushed a little bit too hard and bent them down at the ferrule. But so long as you don't press too hard with your brushes and you don't overload them with paint and you clean them at the end of every session, then you should be able to keep them like we have on screen here. So I've been doing some freehand runes with these for 1000 Suns project that I'm working on. And I'm going to try and clean up at least one of these so I can do a little bit of freehand with it and show you that you can take a splayed brush that you have in your graveyard and even bring it back to the point where you can do some freehanding with it. I'm going to actually pick out a Citadel artificial bristle brush to start off with, and we're going to use distilled water, which I use to load my brush with water before painting, and I also use it when I'm cleaning my brushes. Using distilled water means that you will maintain a very clean water to actually do this with. If you use water out of your tap, you are effectively going to be, you've got chlorine in most tap water. That's not going to do the brushes any good if they have to constantly. I actually filter my brush water that I just void my brushes into. So my drinking water I use to fill my water pot with, and to load my brush and clean my brushes I use distilled water, and I recommend you do the same. Using distilled water when you're painting, so when you're loading your brush up so it's a bit moist so the paint flows, will give you consistency that tap water won't. It'll also keep your brushes staying alive for longer most of the time. Even if you're getting good lock water, as my commissioner Aphelion, one of my commissioners Aphelion does, you're still getting minerals in that water, and there's still likely to be a tiny amount of chlorine injected into it by your local water supplier in order to maintain bacterial levels low enough for humans to drink. So again, distilled water and filtered water. You should be filtering your water for drinking anyway. So if you're doing that, you've already got your paint pot water. And distilled water, sometimes also called deionized water. Yes, it's the stuff you stick in the iron or you use to put in your car. And obviously it's free from any scale, it's free from chlorine, and it's generally contaminant-free H2O. And that's great for when you're cleaning your brushes, because that's going to help break up the dried paint on the bristles better. So one of the things you should really be avoiding doing in order to maintain your brushes is never overloading your brush. If you ever get it so that you have loaded your brush more than halfway up the bristles, generally you should be looking to void out. If this is a very nice brush as well, if you're using an Artis Opus or a Rosemary & Co. or Raphael or whatever else. If you're using a really nice brush, make sure to actually not overload it, because the moment you have moisture in your brush anyway, right, in order to help the paint flow, the paint will sort of trace its way up, and I'm trying to think of the correct word, but it'll soak up into that belly of water over time. So you should try and always only load a brush halfway up the bristles. There should be never any more paint than that. If you go more than halfway up the bristles, you're actually introducing the paint to where the belly of the water is in the belly of the brush, and that's when you risk pigment dropping into the ferrule. Now the ferrule, which is the metal sheath which the bristles go in, the moment that you get paint pigment in the ferrule area where the bristles come out of, is when you're really risking destroying a brush, because it's from the point at which it comes out the bristle that it shapes its point. And if you interfere with that and fill it with pigment, it'll sort of force the bristles and the hairs of the bristles out of line effectively at the very first point at which it's formed. So very important you don't overload your brushes. Now, one of the things that I'm doing right now with this brush, it's an artificial bristle brush, and I'm being quite aggressive with the way that I'm cleaning it. Really, ideally, here I am, I'm filling up my wells with distilled water. Really, like, you should be pulling the brush on the soap backwards towards you, and you shouldn't really be applying more than a 45-degree angle to the brush, because otherwise you risk damaging the bristles when you're cleaning them. So you should keep it, I'm just at a 45-degree angle, maybe a little bit more, because I am being quite aggressive. If this was a Rosemary & Co., or if this was, a nice quality brush that wasn't artificial, it was made out of weasel bum hair, then which is what our high quality bristled brushes usually are made out of, then yeah, you risk damaging them at over a 45-degree angle. So keep it less than maximum 45-degree angle, or less, when you are actually pushing down on the soap and pulling backwards. Now, one of the things you can do is you can twist the brush in the soap as you're pulling it backwards, but again, the more you do that, the more risk you're putting the bristles at sort of twisting around each other and breaking their shape. So ideally, you just are pulling backwards and then turning it slightly, putting it back in the soap further forwards, and then pulling it backwards again. And what you do is you keep doing that until the suds of the soap are white, effectively, so that you can't see any pigment in them. And then shape it to the point that you want it to, and leave it overnight. And I do that at the end of every painting session, unless I forget. I put my brush through some Artisopus soap, and I leave it shaped to the point that I want it to be in. And then when I come to it the next day, I wash it out in clean water, and and that way it maintains itself really well. But if you've ended up overloading it, then you can look to other products as well. It's not just soap. So here we're using Artisopus' paint purger. We've just used that. That is, I think, some sort of a mix of methylated spirits and something to thin it down and make it a little bit less harsh on the bristles of the brushes. But once you've used the paint purge from Artisopus, you're meant to use this here, which is the brush cleanser. I guess that neutralizes the methylated spirits and maybe is consisting of some sort of conditioner in order to maintain the sort of quality of the hairs. This is all assumption. I've no idea what their brush cleanser is made out of. It's got quite a nice citrusy smell to it though. And then this is Cryptic Cabins brush soap, I believe it's called. Let me double check that. Crypt Cabin? I'll put a link down below, but I bought this stuff at a UK Games Expo a couple of years ago, and I'm quite impressed with it. It is very good at lifting out stubborn pigment from brushes. Now, I will also say it is drastically different in its consistency and texture and the way it washes out to normal brush soap. Once you've used Crypt Cabin's brush soap, you kind of need to use some normal soap before you paint with it, because otherwise it'll cause you all sorts of problems. And it doesn't just wash out with water alone. So the Crypt Cabin brush soap, which I will put a link down below for if there is one, is worth picking up, I would say. I'd say it's actually possibly more effective than the methylated spirits mix that's used by Artisopas' paint purger. I think it could be even better at getting rid of dried up pigment than that. And one thing I haven't done, but again with this soap, the Crypt Cabin soap, you could definitely leave it overnight and shape it with that, and I feel like it would probably be even better at restoration. Now, I don't have the time to do a before and after from having soaked up some of that and saturated a brush with the Crypt Cabin soap, and then show you what it's like the next morning. But I shall endeavour to give an update to this video in the comments down below and pin it if I find that it's very good for leaving overnight as well. So that's more or less the process. At the end of every paint session, make sure to clean your brush, use distilled water and brush soap ideally, or any hard soap. Don't apply more than a 45-degree angle to the brush when you're actually pulling it back through the soap in order to build up suds, and basically keep doing that until you don't see any paint left. Sorry, this is just a picture of my glove. I'll probably edit this part out. We'll see. Shape it to the shape you want once you have gotten nice clear suds and you can't see any more pigment being brought out and the brush looks clean as well. Then shape it to a point and you'll be good to leave it overnight, and then clean it the next day on the next painting session, or even however many days. You can leave the brush soap in for a week or more. It's not going to damage it at all, at least not the Artisopas stuff. And again, just rinse it out with distilled water. Maintaining that purity with the water is very helpful. You can buy distilled deionized water for like £1 for a couple of litres or something usually. If you've got a window cleaner that comes around with poles, they have to use distilled water, in fact, because otherwise they leave streaks. So that's a good source if you've already got a window cleaner that uses the pole system in order to get hold of some distilled water without ordering it from Amazon. Anyway, these are the runes that we've been working on. Some of them are a little bit rough, need a bit of cleaning up, but we'll be working on those next week on the Beyond the Box Art twitch.tv channel. That's twitch.tv/Beyond the Box Art. Make sure to click a follow over there if you want to catch me when I'm live. Ask me any questions about your painting journey. Now, I think I'm going to attempt a tiny little bit of freehand with this brush. It's not going to be anything as detailed as that. I'm not going to be using it on that gun. That's a commission. And even though I have managed to turn this brush into something workable, it doesn't have a super sharp point. But it's no longer splayed, and it does hold a shape, and I could totally paint a model with this. No problem. Maybe not high detailed reflections in eyeballs or catch individual teeth, but it's holding together and it's very usable. And we get a little smiley face out of it. Maybe even a little thumbs up. Maybe little thumbs up, little badly drawn, little badly painted thumbs up. I think this is the moment I realise that I've done those the wrong way around completely. It kind of looks like his fingers are going backwards, or he's hanging his right arm around the back of his head. I don't know, this is getting a little bit weird. That's the brush care video. I hope that helps. I do carry on cleaning a few other brushes, but this first attempt was probably the best result. At the end of the day, if you've abused a brush a lot and you've ended up with getting paint up in the ferrule, it's going to be hard to get it back to its original condition. And the more you use the point of your brush, like I'm doing now, the more you damage the bristles of your brush. I do a lot of freehanding with the very tip of very expensive Artisopus brushes. And so it's very important to me to maintain them as best as I can. Because I don't want to have to pay for more brushes all the time. Come on, Artisopus, where's my sponsorship? Right. I love you guys. And I'm going to leave you there with this, basically. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. Say something tell me in the comments if it was helpful. If you will be referring to this when you're trying to restore some brushes. But I managed to get a couple of brushes in a much better, this flat I managed to get cleaned up, but again, it's been abused so much. There are some bristles on the sides that just don't want to take shape, so I do the heinous thing and actually chop a few off so that it's all more in line. But that's something you should avoid doing. Every bristle that's in the ferrule and comes out for you to paint with is put in there very specially by artisans to maintain a shape. The moment that you lose a bristle, you're risking losing the point of the brush or a key hair that's actually helping to hold the shape of it all in place. So what I'm doing here, I'm kind of using my thumb nail and starting at the ferrule, I'm kind of trying to pull out with my gloved thumbnail. I'm trying to dislodge and disturb the dried pigment inside without damaging the bristles, which I managed to not damage any bristles, but there's so much paint caked up inside of this before. These were some of my brushes before I was really taking care of them. That's the reality. Once you get a brush to a certain point, I don't know if there's really any way to get it back. You know, if you've really beaten the very tip of it, the daylights out of the tip of it, or you've been brushing really hard against a model, like excessively hard, then bristles will be out of place. You won't have the point. You'll probably have like paint soaked up in the ferrule. And again, once it's up in the ferrule, you know, it's really hard to get out. So try to avoid that most of all, I would say. And at the end of every painting session, soap it up, get it shaped, leave it on top of your palette for the next time you're painting. And that's it. I won't carry on. 18 minutes talking about brush care is well enough. It's probably too much. All right. Question everything. And have fun. If you enjoyed that episode of Beyond the Box Art, make sure to follow me on all my social medias. And if it pleases you to procure one of my painted pieces, you can peruse the eBay shop. And if you really enjoy the content, you can support me directly at ko-fi.com/beyondtheboxart.